some interesting new indications around how Biden is going to handle antitrust and big tech, with some looking at who he is appointing in the Department of Justice and elsewhere within the administration.
Joining us now to discuss is great friend of the show and DC Bureau Chief at The Intercept, the one and only Ryan Grimm. Great to see you, Ryan.
Good to see you, Ryan.
See you guys.
What did you and David Dayen uncover in this report?
So the key spots here are the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, which has oversight over antitrust, but equally importantly, the Antitrust Division within the Department of Justice. So right now, Trump's Department of Justice is suing Google. This was a case that was contemplated by the Obama administration, but they eventually decided against it. And so now that Trump is actually suing Google, what Dan and I found is that a lawyer who previously represented Google in some antitrust cases with her co-counsel, Ted Cruz, is the leading candidate to be the Assistant Attorney General for the Antitrust Division, along with a number of other corporate attorneys who have a lot of work on the merger side, not defending against mergers, but actually making sure that mergers are able to get through the Antitrust Division and get through the FTC.
Mm-hmm. One of the big concerns I've had, Ryan, is I've noticed that within mainstream Democratic discourse, to the extent that they talk about big tech, it's not even necessarily about breaking up. It's much more like we want them to censor even more. Is that kind of the posture that the Biden administration has? And what's the big concern over that approach and really not going the other route?
I think you're right. A lot of Democrats don't object to the structure of the industry. They don't object to the idea that you have a handful of oligarchs that are that are basically dictating terms across the industry. What they want is for those oligarchs to behave in a certain way. They want them to make sure that Parler stays off the internet, or they want to make sure that QAnon accounts are squashed, or I'm sure they would prefer that YouTube's algorithm not start you out at a Korean recipe and finish you off at some neo-Nazi video. But they don't step back and say, well, what is it about the structure of this industry that is so destructive to the public good? And that's where the anti-monopoly movement comes in, and the skeptics of monopoly power saying that you need to think differently about monopoly than you did in the past. Just because YouTube might be free to viewers doesn't mean that the monopoly over this video platform isn't having a destructive effect on not just on consumers, but as a society as a whole. And therefore, what you need to do is you need to bring antitrust enforcement to bear. You actually have to have the government do something proactive about this beyond just complain and hope that the CEOs behave in the way that you want them to.
Mm-hmm. So basically the reporting is that Biden is looking at these sort of monopoly-friendly appointees for these really key positions. What is the practical impact of that likely to be?
Well, so you have suits, ongoing suits with both Facebook and Google, and so those are test cases. They're not, they're not just test cases. They're huge in themselves because of Google and Facebook's monopoly power. But if the government can effectively enforce its antitrust laws against Google and Facebook, then it can push forward with Amazon, with Apple, with the rest of the kind of big tech industry. And then, it's not just big tech. Big tech is the one that we think about because, they're in our lives on a daily basis. But the entire economy is being consolidated from industry to industry, and small businesses, consumers, workers are all suffering, and it's something that has largely escaped the conversation because it doesn't fit as neatly into the kind of left right binary. And so if those cases are successful, then you can further prosecute an anti-monopoly agenda if you put in attorneys who instead sit down with their former colleagues at Google or their former colleagues at Facebook and say, let's work something out here. And that's what happened during the Obama administration. They sat down with Google and they said, you know what, instead of bringing this antitrust lawsuit, why don't you promise that you're going to stop stealing recipes, you're going to stop stealing reviews from Yelp. and you're going to stop doing this. And so they get Google to agree to a couple things, and then everybody moves on, and you haven't really checked anybody's monopoly power, and so you just have then further and further consolidation. And so the question is which direction this goes at this point.
Yeah, it's so important. And just so people know, the Microsoft case that the Clinton administration brought, it was only dropped because the Bush administration decided that it wasn't a priority. So who the president is has immense, capability in order to steer these investigations. Ryan, thanks for joining us, man, and outlining this. Really important.
Yep, you got it.
All right, we'll have more Rising for everybody right after this.